I'm here with Erica, and we're going over our list of privileges. Privileges we either can identify with, privileges we don't identify with, as well as the biases that come with those privileges. Off this list of 42 privileges, we're going to choose a few that stuck out to us and see if we relate to those or not. The first one that definitely stuck out to me is, as a child, I never shared a bedroom. I personally shared a bedroom. Did you?
Yeah, I did, but it wasn't out of necessity. We had enough rooms that we could have all had our own rooms, but I was like 3. My sister was afraid of the dark.
I shared my room most of my childhood.
Yeah, I did too, until I was 12.
Yeah, but we didn't have a lot of rooms. There was 8 of us living in a 3-bedroom house.
That's where I am now.
Yeah.
We had 5 bedrooms, and there were 6 of us, but my parents were one room, so.
I feel that living with multiple people in a bedroom teaches you about life and culture.
You really understand about sharing and being thoughtful about other people's presence and what you're doing in that room.
Definitely thoughtful. You start to consider other people.
Yeah.
When you don't, my teenage years, my preteen years, I had my own room, and I became very don't touch. It's my stuff. Don't touch. It's my way. But before, I wasn't like that at all as a child.
Yeah, you get used to it. You get used to sharing things and people forgetting to ask you for things, and you're just whatever. You get used to it.
All right. As a child growing up, I never lived in a rented apartment. I didn't either. I lived in a house.
I did too. Yeah, and it was our house.
So it must be doesn't that give you a sense of security that maybe other...
Stability, yeah, that a lot of people don't if you're working class. The fact that most people start off renting, or they may rent for their whole lives. Mm-hmm. That's not something we ever had to worry about.
That's crazy to think that some kids never get to just live in one house. They have to get used to a different house, get used to a different environment.
The kids do that now. Different
neighbors. And it's when you have your own house, your room's been your room for years.
Yeah, it's knowing that that's always going to be the same. It's something you can...
One of them that really stuck out to me, and I was blessed enough to get this encouragement as a child, was growing up. My parents told me that I could be anything that I wanted. It's scary to think that there's kids that have parents that don't tell them that they could be what they want, or... Because
that's not options for them. If you come from a working class family, you probably, a lot of people would assume that you're not going to expect them to be go be an artist. Mm-hmm. You have that mentality that you need to take care of yourself and be stable and help your family, help yourself. You don't have opportunity. You don't have those opportunities to be able to just go off in college and do a dance major or something like that, and then have your parents to fall back on without causing strain.
It makes me think of those students that get the chance to just be students and just do college, they get to just embrace the experience of the education, compared to students who have to work, have to go to school, have to help their family, have to be a support system within the household, and they don't get to just embrace their education.
Yeah, it ends up being a hard thing.
And they do it because of the benefits that it comes with, not the experience. Mm-hmm. That's wild to think about that. Another privilege would be, no one in my immediate family has ever gone to jail. I've been lucky enough that no one in my family has gone to jail.
That freaked me out, that's a real thing.
Think about it.
My immediate family, no, my kids, my brother and sister, even my extended, first cousins, my aunts and uncles, nobody.
Think about it. Some people have their parents in jail. They live with their siblings, knowing that their older brother, the person that has to protect them, that they have to look up to, is in jail. Do you think that causes any biases in regards to your personality and how you look at life? And
I feel when I was younger, those kinds of things made me think negatively about people. Mm-hmm. But as an adult and having my own kids and really seeing all of that, you don't know what other people have gone through. And you shouldn't just completely assume that somebody is worthless because they went to jail or there's something. We don't know what happened, without talking to them. So I have less judgment on that. But before, I would have had a lot of judgment on that. A lot. I wouldn't have talked to that person. I didn't want to associate with anybody that had anything like that in their life.
I went to school in a low-income environment, and I would hear about my friends, even in elementary school, oh, my dad's in jail. or my older sister's in jail, and I would think like, oh, they must have done something bad, or they must be a bad person. But you never really think about the impact it has on that individual. Like, I would go home and I would hang out with my sister, or my sister's a person that taught me how to play with my makeup, taught me how to dress. And it's like, to think that there's somebody that you could have a relationship with and you are supposed to have a relationship, but you don't have that option. It makes you not want to trust the system. It makes you not want to open up to other people. And even if it's your parent, imagine just knowing that your mom and dad are always there, and then the idea of them not being there, and it's not their choice. Like, it's scary.
Yeah.
Because it makes you think like they can be gone at any moment. And then imagine having them go to jail, and then having come out to jail, and then the fear of them not being back around, like having to go back to jail, which usually happens. There's statistics that state that people who have been in jail usually end up going back.
Right.
So imagine just knowing that there's a possibility your dad can be taken away again, and it's not him. It's, in a way, kids don't acknowledge the responsibility of the adult within it, but in their head it's not him, it's they're taking them away, but they don't know who they are.
Right. Well, it's interesting to see that, because my kids, their dad have like uncles and family members like that. They were all gangbangers. I didn't know about any of that. And they have a little cousin, or an older cousin, that goes to school with them, and their dad is always in and out of prison. Like, it's like him and his two brothers. And I was just like, I can't imagine. I just can't. And that kid, like, and he's not a bad guy. Like, I've met him. But I couldn't imagine, like, because he's so loving with his kids, like, I couldn't imagine not having that person around. Like, that would feel terrible.
Now think about people that live in the suburbs who don't experience the, oh, my dad's in jail.
I didn't experience that until I was like an adult.
And I experienced it in early age. So it's like, so you must have gone like, oh, he's a horrible person. He probably did you ever have that they deserve it because they did it type of mentality?
It's hard. The things that he's done were like obviously things he knew he was breaking the law, and it wasn't like out of protecting his family and stuff. It was, he was a gang member and did that kind of stuff. So he kind of does it to himself, but I feel like I have more understanding for like his family, because I've seen all those kids suffer and like feel terrible and go down similar paths as him, the older ones, and like I don't necessarily feel bad for him, but I don't disrespect him. I don't dislike him. Like, he has a lot of issues, but anytime he's been around my children, like, he's been a good person. He loves my kids. Like, I don't think he's a bad person. I think he's made bad decisions. That's a different thing, you know?
Do you think it's like just a bad habit? Sometimes, do you think going to jail becomes a bad habit?
I'm gonna stay home.
So she had that option. So it makes me think of how parents don't have that option, and that's when a lot of kids are raised by grandparents, because parents are at
I was
work.
still raised by my grandmother a lot.
Yeah.
My brother's a lot older than us, so my mom would take him to that. My dad was traveling a lot, and my grandma was home with us, which I appreciate, honestly. I think it's a level of understanding my history and like my culture and stuff like that that I probably would have never learned if I was with my mom, because she's super American, because we all are.
She's Americanized.
Well, she's 4th generation Mexican American. Like, her great grandparents are from Mexico.
Oh wow.
Like, we're from here. And my grandma that raised me was from Puerto Rico. So I got more culture than
My parents, they don't have any type of education. My mom went up to middle school. My dad never went to school. And the whole concept of school is just shocking to them. They don't understand it at all. Like, they were so scared when I was going to go to college. But even growing up, I feel like when you have parents who do have higher education, they have more connections.
There's so many more opportunities that you have.
And options, yeah.
You just know about more things. Both my parents went through college, and my mom was the first person in her family to go to college. But, like, they set us up so that we could be on that track to do all the things we wanted to, gave us opportunities and connected us with the right people, and they knew how to do applications and scholarships and all of that. Like, I don't know how we would have done it without it. Like, I was so naive about it. I didn't even know until I was in college that there was 2 tracks for high school, that you could go college prep or you could do like vocational, like regular. I didn't know there was like tracks for that. My mom did a track in high school where it wasn't preparing you for college. It was preparing you to be able to pass the exam to get out of high school. And so they had like home ec and all this other stuff, and you only had to do 1 semester of math maybe, and like whatever. I was like, there's a different track. Like, what's going on here? Or like how at schools they have you can say like wood shop or whatever. You can do like programs for like different programs for like vocational training or technical training. I didn't know they don't have those in private school. It's a college prep school. You're only going to college. That's what you're doing.
Wow.
I had no idea that there was a difference.
Yeah.
I felt really dumb when I found out. And they're like, what are you talking about? And everybody goes to college. And I was like, what? Yeah. I had 180 people that graduated in my class. They all went to college.
See, and in my school, not even, I mean, from going into freshman year to senior year, probably, I'm assuming 60% of the students graduate when they're supposed to. And maybe about, I would say, 20, maybe 15% go to 4-year universities. Maybe a little bit more, maybe 30% or so probably go to city college.
Yeah.
But a lot of them don't even consider college. Mostly it's just the athletes, because that's
scholarships.
That's what they're influenced to continue to do by the teachers
who
have
education.
Yeah, and they have the diplomas, they have higher education. So those are people influencing you. And you're close to them. Those are the athletes, those are the students that are involved academically, who are closer to the adults in school rather than the peers at school. And that's guiding them to success. But the students who focus more on the peers, the high school experience, and, don't make those connections with the adults that do have a higher education, they tend to not focus on the bigger picture, or maybe not even see a bigger picture. So when you have that in your parents, it makes you think that there's endless possibilities. But if you don't, you see their struggle, and that overall can limit yourself. But let's go on to another one. Growing up, I was generally able to avoid places that were dangerous.
Yeah.
Imagine not being able to have that option. What if you just know that you live in a dangerous environment?
Yeah, that would be terrifying. I grew up in like a little area of where I was, and we could like 7 or 8 like go ride our bikes down the street and like by ourselves and go get like cherries or something from like the corner store in like our neighborhood. Like it was not the same. And then we had 2 houses, and we had a second house, so when we sold our other house, we moved there, and it was like not in a good neighborhood. I didn't know that. And then when we moved there, like we weren't allowed to go out by ourselves, and I was like in high school, and I was just like, this was like the weirdest, like the most surreal situation that I'd ever had happen in my life. Like it was like I felt strange because I didn't feel safe. And I was like, this is how people feel like growing up like in places like this. Like I'm so confused.
I lived in a low-income neighborhood, and I was lucky enough to, by the time my parents got to me, I'm the youngest of 6. They were already more stable economically. So we lived in a home throughout my life. And with that said, we had a big yard and a big gate.